Why are two of the big craft stores named after humans? Hi everyone, welcome back to Popsicle Frog Knits. My name is Brooke. I'm the human behind Popsicle Frog. I'm a knitter based outside of Houston, and this is my little corner of the internet where I've started back at it, and she's already making noises. That was my puppy Ripley. She's not a puppy, but she is. I don't think you can see her, but she's on my bed. But I was saying, I am a knitter and crafter, I guess, based outside of Houston. And this is my little space where I've started sharing my knitting journey, I guess. And I'm so excited because today we have the third episode of the Popsicle Frog Knitting Podcast. That is a mouthful to say. I feel like it needs a different name, but I suck at coming up with names. It took me years to get to Popsicle Frog. So if you have any suggestions, please share them with me. But today is going to be episode 3 of the video podcast, and it's everything I have worked on in the month of September, which is exciting. It is currently the 2nd of October, and I'm just excited to share what I've been making with you guys. So if you want to grab a drink, your craft of choice, anything really. If you're just watching this and not doing anything, that's also okay. But we're gonna get into it. I have an iced coffee that I've been sipping on for several hours. It's pretty watery now, but I'm gonna drink it anyway. Hi everyone, Editing Brooke here. I just wanted to add that I drew a giveaway winner, and I announced it in my last video, but I haven't gotten that many views on that, so I figured I would announce it here too. So the winner of the giveaway for the little mushroom stitch markers and the carpet giant coaster thing that I don't know what to call it is Lily Levitsky. If you're watching this, hello. You can email me at popsiclefrogknits. I'll put it in the description and on the screen. And yeah, I lost my train of thought. If you just email me, email me your shipping address. I will get that off into the mail ASAP. So thank you to everyone that commented. I really loved seeing what everyone was working on and what people's favorite TV shows are. So, okay, back to other me. But without further ado, we're going to get started, and we follow a pretty typical knitting podcast format here. So I'm going to start with what I'm wearing, which also happens to be my first finished object. So I am wearing my Cumulus blouse, which if you watched the last video, I wore it for a little bit at the beginning of that video. But I am obsessed is like not enough to describe how much I love this. I have been wearing it nonstop, even though it's still in the 90s most of the time here. Thankfully there's air conditioning, so like wearing it inside is fine. Though I have worn it outside when it was about 90 degrees. And I was shockingly fine for 2 strands of mohair in an entire garment, but I don't stay outside for long. It's just too hot. But this is my Cumulus blouse. Let me see if I can show it to you. I never know how to show things very well. I'm still working on it. But again, I'm so excited about this. So let's talk a little bit about the garment. So again, it's the Cumulus blouse, which is by Petite Knit. I knit a size medium, and my measurements are, my bust is typically around 94 centimeters. which it fluctuates. It's like 36 to 38 inches, depending on all kinds of different things. But that is my bust, which is the measurement that you take to make this garment. So I knit a size medium, even though I know this pattern typically runs really big. So typically people size down when making this so it fits them better, which I was planning to do, but I did my gauge swatch on the recommended needles, which I believe is 4.5 millimeters, and my gauge was off. So I had too few stitches. No, I had too many stitches versus the amount I was supposed to have. And then I gauge swatched going up a needle size to a 5 millimeter needle, and it was almost exactly the right gauge, but I decided I liked the fabric of the 4.5 millimeters better. I just liked that it was a tighter gauge. And so I decided I did a little bit of math, which it took me a while, but it's because I haven't done a lot of math in like 3 or 4 years, but I do like math. I've missed it a little bit. I really love calculus. We're getting off topic, but I did a little bit of math and figured out that using the 4.5 millimeters, the gauge I was getting, it should fit me the way that I wanted it to. So I decided to just do a medium, like straight up medium, and I did a couple of modifications. So one, I wanted the V-neck to be deeper. So instead of joining in the round where the pattern tells you to, I kept knitting back and forth while still doing increases, which you do increases still once you join it in the round. I'm trying not to give too much of the pattern away, so I'm not going to say like how many rows, but I added a couple rows before I joined, and I ended up doing 2 extra rounds of increases. So my body, the number of stitches in the body was a couple of stitches over what it was supposed to be, and I had extra stitches in the sleeves, which ended up working out perfectly because I have long arms, and it ended up working out that you do decreases steadily down the arms, and it ended up working out that the amount that I needed to add would give me an extra set of decreases. So it worked out perfectly, which is shocking. I very much am someone who's just like, we're gonna see how this goes, and just like fudges my way through it. But it worked out for this one, which is a good change. I was very happy about it. But I also knit it shorter. I typically like things ending like at my natural waist, which is here. So I made it a little bit longer so I could tuck it into the front of my jeans, because I only wear high-waisted jeans and pants. I do not like anything that sits below my natural waist. And so I made it where I can tuck it in a little bit. So I also have a pretty short torso, especially for my height. I'm almost 5'8", and so my legs are super long and my torso is quite short. So I crop everything. I can't think of anything I haven't cropped. But those are the modifications I made. Also, so for the I-cord edge, so let's see if I can show it to you. So there's I-cord edging on the body, on the sleeves, and on the neckline. So all the edges are finished with I-cord, and so for the sleeves to get like this little poof bit, you do decreases at the same time you're doing the I-cord, And you do that on the body as well. And I just changed the frequency with which I did the decreases because I didn't want it too tight around my waist. So I decreased less than I was supposed to, or less often than I was supposed to. But that is my Cumulus blouse. That's the kind of like specs of it. It is knit in Drops Kid Silk in the color mauve or mauve. This is like the fourth time I've brought up the fact that I don't know how to say that color properly. I don't know which one's right. So I just say both. And it's color 31. And so I used I'd say about 7 balls of yarn. It was 25-gram balls. And it's held double throughout, so I used about a little over, I think about 3.5. Okay, if I had knit it with one strand, I would have used about 3.5 balls to get the garment. But double that, since it was held double, is about 7. So I think I have a little bit more than 25 grams left. So for the garment itself, it runs from an extra small to a 3XL. So that's made to fit, I'm just looking at my notes, made to fit a bust circumference of 80 centimeters, which is about 31.5 inches, to 130 centimeters or 51.25 inches. So I've talked about this a couple of times now. It is not what I would consider fully size inclusive and what most people consider fully size inclusive, but just being open with that fact, and how I am trying to move over to only knitting size inclusive patterns. So that is the Cumulus blouse. And this is a very finished object heavy podcast. I only have one whip, but I have 4 finished objects, this being the first one. So I finished this pretty early in September. Yeah, so this was the first one. My second one, which was like a languishing work in progress last time. I hadn't really worked on it at all in August, but it is let's grab it. Oslo hat. That's what the pattern's called. I call it my Oslo beanie because I like the word beanie better. I think of hats as something else, but let's see if I can try it on. Let's see. I'm going to take it off because I'm going to get too warm if I leave it on. Let's hope it didn't mess up my hair too much. But this is the Oslo beanie. It is also by Petite Knit. I used Yarn B hand-dyed, authentic hand-dyed Vivid in the color Lime. And it's this gorgeous, like, bright green color, which I love. And I had bought this yarn to make a top, and I didn't like how it was looking and how it was going to fit me. So I decided to make this beanie because the pattern calls to hold 2 fingering weights together, and this is a DK yarn, so I just used one strand and it got me where I needed it to be. I did not gauge swatch for this. I gauge swatch for like all of my garments. This is the first accessory pattern I followed that was not a sock, and I just decided not to gauge swatch because I assumed it would be fine, and it is mostly fine. But I realized today when I was prepping for this video that I should have taken my head measurement before I made a beanie, because I should have gone down a size. Apparently I have a small head. I'm learning that today. The circumference of my head is about 53.5 centimeters, which is about 21 inches. And that happens to fit within the child size range. So, this beanie comes in 4 sizes. It's labeled as child, junior, woman, and man. And so it fits a head circumference of 47 centimeters or 18.5 inches. And where'd it go? 62 centimeters and for 24.5 inches. So I fit in the child size because the child size is 50 to 55 centimeters. And my head is 53 centimeters. So it's a little bit big on me. It fit really well before I blocked it, and then I forgot that superwash yarn grows. So it's bigger than I thought it was gonna be, but I do still love it. I'm not super happy with how the decreases at the crown look. Like, I'm fine with one of the sides, but the other side just looks funky because of the way the decreases are written, I think. But I'm gonna wear it. People aren't gonna look at the top of my head. Most people. Because I'm almost 5'8", so you'd have to be taller than that to look down on my head. But this is the first hat I've made that turned out not a disaster. So that's something. This is the third hat I've made. The first one I made right after I knit my first thing. I can't call it a garment. I don't think it's a sock, but I wanted to make a beanie, and so I got yarn, I got needles, and I found a YouTube tutorial on how to make a ribbed beanie. And I didn't understand what gauge was. I had just started knitting like a week and a half before. I had no idea what gauge was. It's just so bad. It's so tiny. It can fit my teddy bear. It sits on the top of my head. Because I didn't understand gauge and the different weights of yarn. And then the second hat I made is somehow worse than the first. I was trying to follow Bethany of Well Loved Knits, her like boucle bucket hat pattern. And then part of the way through, I just decided to wing it. I'm not going to show them right now because I'm saving them for my Everything I Knit this year video because they're so funny. And I feel like it's going to be worth the wait to see how absolutely ridiculous they are. It's so bad. But Oslo hat. Okay, so my next FO, which I finished this week and I made a video about, which you can go watch. I'll put the link in one of the corners, is Frog. Look at Frog. Look at his little legs and his little arms and his eyes. I love his eyes. So this is Frog. The pattern is by Claire Garland, who is .pebble knits on Instagram. And so many people have followed this pattern, but my channel is called Popsicle Frog. I had to make a frog. Like, it's required. So I bought the yarn a couple months ago, and I just did not have time to make him until this week. So I made Frog. He's got some issues, but I love him anyway because he's like my little child. I had some issues attaching the legs because I didn't read the instructions properly. I figured out my issues with the arms, so they're attached properly. But I because of what I did, I think I can't get him to sit the way he's supposed to. But I don't know how to undo my seaming. Like, I weaved everything in apparently so well that I could not undo it if I tried. So my plan is to go get some like wire from a craft store and put it in, and then his little limbs will be pliable and I can put him in whatever position I want. I will probably make another frog at some point because part of me wants a little army. Look, he can sit and cross his arms. He's like a little bouncer. So let's talk about the components of Frog. So he's made with drops Lima in 2 different colors. The body is olive mix, which is 0705, and his tummy is made of off-white, which is 0100. So drops Lima is a 65% wool, 35% alpaca mix. And so he's very soft. He's got a little bit of a halo. I don't know how easy that is to see. But he's got just the faintest halo because the pattern uses, I believe, a fingering weight and a mohair to make a DK. And this is just a DK weight yarn. So I stuffed him with polyfill. I was debating between polyfill and yarn scraps, but I have polyfill on hand. So I used the polyfill, and then I used these little safety eyes that I got from Wool Warehouse. They're just 12 millimeter safety eyes. But that's Frog. I love him. I'm very excited to have him. I already took some very cute pictures, which you can go see on my Instagram if you're interested. But he's just a little fella. I might make him a sweater at some point, but that's not going to happen anytime soon. But yeah, that's the third finished object. I feel like today's podcast is going to be short, even though I have so many finished objects. It's because one of them was a hat and one of them's this little guy, so there's not much to say because there's one size. And yeah, he was pretty easy to make. The hardest part, I don't even know what the hardest part was. Like you use short rows, you do lots of seaming. The limbs are made of I-cord. I think the way that the little feet are done, I was like concerned about doing them. I just was like, there's my girl. Oh my gosh, you can see her. You can't see her head, but that's her. I can't remember what I was saying. Oh, short rows, you do I-cord, and I was very worried about the little toes. I was like, I don't know how this is gonna be. I'm gonna mess it up, and it was super easy actually. Claire does have a YouTube video that goes through the steps of making Frog. It doesn't give you all the directions that the pattern does, but it is good if you're unsure of any of the steps. Okay, I just crossed his arms. Okay, I really need to get wire because then I can do all kinds of fun things. But that's my little fella. His name's Pico. because that's the name of the Popsicle Frog that started all of this. He was named by my best friend because I was like, he needs a name and it needs to start with P because I'm all about alliteration. So he's Pico the Popsicle Frog. I don't know how she came up with that name. She just did. I was like, that's great. So there's little Pico. He's going to go sit over there. Okay, and on to my last finished object, which technically is not finished because it's drying on the blocking mats that are by my feet, and it does not have its buttons yet. But I finished knitting it, and it's almost dry. The bottom, like the back half, is still a little bit wet, which is why I haven't taken it off of the blogging mats. But I'm going to try to take some footage once it is dry to put into the video so you can see what it looks like. But it is the Traveler's Cardigan by Ozetta Knitwear. Also, her real name's Haley Smedley. And I'm so excited about this. This is the first cardigan, like everyday wear cardigan I've made for myself. I've made a couple for other people, and I made a super like chunky cardigan with Wool Ease Thick and Quick, so it's big. It was on like 12mm needles, and it is not for everyday wear. It's heavy and warm, and I love it, but I wanted something that would be more of a staple. So the Traveler's Cardigan, I'm so excited. I can't wait to wear it. It looks so good on the blocking mats. But let's talk a little bit about the garment, the yarn, all of that fun stuff. So, let's have a sip of... Oh, that was like just slightly coffee flavored water. Oh man, that was not great. Okay, I've got my notes now. So, this is a newer pattern by Ozetta Knitwear. It came out in early August, and I knew I wanted to make it. I had applied to test knit, didn't get it, which is totally fine. I was pretty busy. I ended up doing my anchored sweater in July instead, but I knew that I wanted to make it, so I bought the pattern as soon as it came out. I bought the yarn like 2 days after the pattern came out, and I could not wait to start it. And so it is like a very classic, timeless cardigan. It is drop shoulder, and it has balloon sleeves. And one of the really cool features of it that I was very interested in is you work the button band at the same time you work the body. So you basically have stitches on smaller needles that you work every row, and so you get a vertical ribbed button band instead of like a typical button band where you pick up the stitches. So that was a really cool feature, and it is going to be really helpful when adding the buttons because I know exactly where they... Okay, my camera cut me off, but I was talking about the buttons and buttonholes for the Traveler's Cardigan. So I know exactly where I need to attach the buttons, and so I won't have to like struggle to figure it out, which is kind of what I've done on the other cardigans I've made, is just like line it up as best I can and then put stitch markers. On this, I know exactly where they're supposed to go. And so I didn't really do that many modifications. I mean, it's already, like the pattern already crops it pretty close to the waist measurement. So I did the exact number of rows the pattern called for, because it gives you the instructions in number of rows and then like an estimate of what the length is. And my gauge was a little bit off, but not bad enough that I needed to really change anything about the size I was knitting. So I knit a medium, and I can't remember if I said this, but I almost always knit mediums. That is the size that my bust measurement fits squarely in the middle of. So I almost always knit mediums. And the size range for this is size inclusive. So it goes from an extra small to a 5XL, which is meant to fit a bust size of, it's not on the Ravelry page, so let me just pull it up real quick. Okay. So the garment's supposed to have about 5 inches or 13 centimeters of positive ease, and it goes from a 30-inch bust to a 60-inch bust, or 70 centimeter to 152 centimeter bust. So it is size inclusive, which is awesome. Again, I'm trying to switch to only size inclusive patterns, and I talked a lot about that in one of my previous videos. But those aren't listed on the Ravelry site, so I just wanted to include that to make sure to share it, because it should be on the Ravelry page so people don't have to buy the pattern to see. But so let's go on to, oh no, I was talking about modifications. So I didn't make any modifications to the body. I followed the pattern exactly as written. The sleeves, I did pick up a couple extra stitches to make sure I didn't have holes in the underarm, and then I just knit the sleeves. I knit about half an inch longer, so a couple extra rows, and I also added a row or two to the ribbing, just because, again, I have pretty long arms, so I almost always need to add length to get it to where I want it to sit. So those are the modifications I made. I will say, before I get into the yarn, I do love this yarn. I think it's going to be great, but I have some issues with it. So let's talk about the yarn. So I used the yarn that the pattern calls for, which is Wool Dreamers Manchalopi, which is a unspun pencil roving from Spain. And I was really excited to work with this. It was my first pencil roving. And okay, there's definitely a learning curve when using this yarn because it is unspun, which means if you pull it too hard, it will snap. And you can easily just spit splice it back together or use water to splice it together, which is what I did. But holy cow, doing a tubular bind off with this yarn, it tested my patience so much. I was so frustrated. I was like, I kept swearing every time it would break. And I ended up having to keep like a little ramekin of water next to me because I had to splice it so often. And that was not fun. I did not enjoy that at all. Because like, oh man, it just took forever and it kept splitting. And so I was using super short amounts of yarn so there wouldn't be like a huge yarn tail, and then when I would get towards the end I would just add more yarn, and I did that over and over again. But it probably took me 2 hours, which it does not normally take me that long to do a tubular bind off. I go pretty quickly with them, and I kind of enjoy doing it. I like the repetitive motion of it, and it means you're finishing a part of it. So it's normally a nice like little milestone for me, but this was a nightmare. But I do really like this yarn. I'm excited to have a garment in it, and I used the color, let me check. I used natural mid-gray, so it is undyed. It is a mixture of dark and light sheep wool, and it is from Manchega sheep, which is why it's Manchalopi. It's a DK weight yarn that comes in like a plate, and it's wound double. So if you unraveled it, you could separate the two strands and use it as a fingering weight, but I wouldn't recommend doing that. I would use it as a DK weight, because I feel like if you were just using one, it would have very little structural integrity. I could be wrong about that, but that's my take on it. But I used less than 3 plates of the yarn. I probably have about 20 or 30 grams left, so I did use the majority of it. And I'm just very excited to have this in my wardrobe. I have pretty sensitive skin, so it's definitely going to be a little bit prickly, I think. I think it's soften it. It definitely softened while blocking. And some of the sharper, it's not sharper, they're longer and like thicker fibers, I think quite a bit of them came out in the washing and drying of it with a towel. And another thing about the yarn is there's still straw pieces in it. So like I was picking out straw pieces every so often, and then there were some like almost like spur kind of things in it that were just like, I think it was just really dense wool fiber. So I would pick those out because I was like, this is gonna feel terrible against my skin. But I'm very excited to have this cardigan in my wardrobe, and I finished it at the perfect time, because I am going to be traveling in a couple of days. So I mentioned in my planning for August and September knitting that I'm going to Europe for the month of October to meet my best friend. And I leave, today's Sunday, I leave on Tuesday. So I finished this yesterday morning. I soaked it, dried it like within an inch of its life with a towel, and it's been blocking, and I've just been praying that the humidity didn't keep it from drying quickly. And thankfully it's not that humid right now. The weather is starting to get a little bit cooler and less humid, so it is almost dry. Thank goodness, because if it wasn't dry by the time I left, I think I would have cried, because it's the traveler's cardigan and I'm traveling. It's perfect. But with that said, I actually completed all of my knitting plans that I had concrete plans for in that video, which I'm not gonna lie, I was not sure would happen. I was very concerned that it wasn't going to happen, because I had a garment for my best friend. I had this, which is mohair on not huge needles, and lots of back and forth before you get to in the round. I had a cardigan for myself and frog. Those were my concrete plans for knitting. And I also happened to finish my beanie, which is awesome. And I got it all done, which again, I'm just kind of surprised by, but I'm very excited. And that's why this is not really a whip heavy episode, because I am going on a trip and I'm going to be traveling a lot. And so I don't want to take any big projects. I mean, I have one relatively big project I'm taking with me, but it's almost half done. And the second half shouldn't be too difficult, because it's mostly just stockinette in the round. And we can just move on to works in progress. So my singular work in progress is a test knit for Florence Miller of Handmade by Florence, and it is the Sporty Knit Skort. Yeah, so let me grab it. Okay. I only have like that much yarn in the cake that I was using. Let's see. So let's talk about the yarn real quick. This is the yarn I'm using. This yarn has been the bane of my existence since I got it in August. No, I got it in July because this is what I was going to knit my anchored sweater with. And it says it's Aran weight, and that is a lie. A huge lie. I'm using this for a DK pattern. DK weight pattern. So keep that in mind. This is it's the Simply Alpaca Aran from Knit Picks in the color Alphonse, which I think is just a very fun name. And I love the color of it. So let's see. Okay, that's the back. So it doesn't look like much right now, but it just kind of looks like a rib tube. But let's see if I can show you. But if I stretch it. So it's such an, like, I think it's such a cool design. I would have never thought to do something like this because it is it's like a tennis kind of skort, which is why it's the Sporty knit skort, but it uses increases in ribbing to make it look pleated, which is so cool. And so let's see. So it starts off in 1x3 ribbing, and then you keep going from there. It has some short rows in it, and then once the skort part is finished, you pick up stitches and you work on, I said skort. Once the skirt is finished, you pick up stitches in the waistband and you make the shorts. I almost said skirt. But it has a folded waistband that has an elastic in it. I really love like these folded hems. At first, when I first made it, I was like, I don't know how I feel. It was with the Hemingway shorts I did this the first time. It's like, I don't know how I feel about the little pearl bumps at the top, but I actually really like them. So but this is a test knit. This is my second test knit. It's really funny because both test knits I've done have been for bottoms. So I did the Hemingway shorts, in June and into July. And now I've been doing this one. So I have, it's looking pretty long, but I tried it on last night for the first time, which was very exciting. I tried on the waistband, but it was the first time I tried it on where the skort existed, or skirt, oh my gosh, where the skirt existed, and it just went past my butt. So I do have a couple centimeters left before I think following the pattern I have 4 centimeters, but I might need to do more to make it a little bit longer so my butt's not hanging out the back. Because proportionately my hips are smaller than my butt. Proportionately. I'm not a well-proportioned human, is what I typically say, especially to my parents. I'm like, my head's small. That's a new thing. I haven't said that to them before, but my head is small. My torso is small. My arms are long, and my legs are long. And I have small feet. So I am not a well-proportioned human. But I've come to accept that. I just go with it. And knitting is great because I can make things the length that I want them. So that's this. So it is, I said it was a DK weight pattern. So the sample, the original sample that Florence made was made with Drops Puna, which is 100% alpaca. It's a Drops yarn. And I am also using 100% alpaca, which this is the first time working with 100% alpaca. At first, so much fiber was getting in my mouth. But as time went on, it didn't get as bad. It does still come off on my clothes, especially because I wear black like shorts and pants around the house most of the time because that's just what I own. So these fibers do show up. It's knit on 3.5 millimeter needles, and I'm having fun with it. The ribbing, it's funny because at first I felt like the ribbing was taking forever when it was 3x1. I was like, this is such, it felt like a slog, really. And then I got down a little bit and it got to like 2x3 and 3x3, and I was like, this is going so fast. And now I've done the last set of increases, so there are a lot of stitches on my needles. I think there's almost, if it's not over, then it's almost 400 stitches. I don't remember exactly, but it's a lot of stitches. So it does take a while to do one row, but I'd say I did about 3.5 centimeters in a couple of hours last night, which I think is pretty good considering the number of stitches and that it's on 3.5 millimeter needles. But let's talk about sizing a little bit. So I'm knitting there, it goes from size A to size, let me double check, size L. So there's 12 sizes, and it is, an A is meant to fit a natural waist measurement of 63 centimeters, and an L is supposed to fit 118 centimeters. So the Instagram page Fat Test Knits recently just updated their sizing for what they consider size inclusive and what the Craft Yarn Council considers size inclusive. And for bottoms, garments that are like skirts, shorts, that kind of thing, the definition now for like size inclusive is to be 124 centimeters. So this pattern is very close. I think that when the pattern was made, it still like fit within size inclusivity, but that has changed a little bit in the last couple of weeks. So it's, yeah, just keep that in mind. So I said I'm making the size E, which is to fit a natural waist measurement of about 83 centimeters. So I said earlier, my natural waist is about 78. Or no, I didn't say it earlier because I was talking about garments. I was talking about my bust measurement. But my natural waist is about 78 centimeters today. Like today, that is what my waist is. It fluctuates. I've talked a little bit about having a chronic stomach condition. So my stomach, and because of that, my waist measurement does change quite a bit from day to day. Like, that's just how it is. So I'm making the size that is for a waist of 83 centimeters, even though I could have done a size D because that is meant to fit a waist of 78 centimeters. But when I applied to test knit, my waist measurement was about 81 centimeters. So I went with the 83, and I'm very happy with how it fit when I tried it on yesterday for the first time. So I think it's going to be fine. And if it's a little bit loose, that's fine. I'd rather that than it be like super tight. So that's just my preference. But I think that was everything about the Sporty Knit skort. Oh, the test knit is running for a couple more weeks, so I think the idea is to have the pattern out at some point in October. But keep your eyes peeled for that. You can follow Florence on Instagram. She's at Handmade by Florence to keep up to date with when the pattern's going to be released. But I'm really enjoying test knitting this, and I'm excited to try to do more test knits in the future. And yeah, let's move on to acquisitions, which, if you don't like acquisitions, thank you for watching. I hope to see you again soon. And if you do like acquisitions, then hello. You can continue watching. My brain's a little chaotic today. My brain's always chaotic. We'll just leave it at that. But I don't have a lot of acquisitions. I've I've talked about this a little bit. I don't buy yarn really unless I have a project in mind for it. And so my one yarn acquisition, I don't know if you can hear my other dog scratching his neck. Okay, so my one yarn acquisition I did buy with a purpose because that's my MO, but it is, oop, I just hit frog. This, which is Cascade 220, which is a worsted weight wool yarn, and it is the color, let's look, it's color number 9565, which I looked up and is called Koi. So it is a very orangey red yarn, which not a color I typically wear, but I am using it for a beanie. So let me grab my swatch, I'll show it to you. So I am using this yarn to make a beanie as part of La Mercerie, which is a yarn shop in Seattle, I believe, as part of a knit along that they are hosting, that is the Life Aquatic Cow, which is the hashtag on Instagram if you're interested. And it is a knit along based on one of my favorite movies, which is The Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou. It's a Wes Anderson film. It has Bill Murray in it. I mean, the cast is insane. It has Owen Wilson, Angelica Houston, Willem Dafoe, Kate Blanchett. Feel like there are other people that I'm forgetting, but it is a fantastic movie. But the character of Steve Zissou is based off of Jacques Cousteau. And so he and his entire crew, all of them wear some type of red hat. I'll insert a little picture of it so you can see what the kind of inspiration is. But, oh my goodness, how my other puppy's here. I don't think he's been introduced. You want to say hi? Come here. Kitty, come. Come here. Come here. Oh, come here. Come here, Bob. Oh. This is Chester. Chizzy, can you look at the camera? Chester. Come here. Come here. Move your head. Move your head. Move your head. Oh, there we go. There we go. He's not going to look at the camera, but he's looking out the window. This is Chester. He is a Labradoodle. He is 9 years old. And he's a giant baby, if you cannot tell. He likes to be held like a toddler, which he has liked since he was a little guy. But he's not the most social, so he doesn't normally come up and interact with me while I'm filming. Normally he leaves that to Ripley. But I think he got tired of being by himself downstairs. So okay, can we put you down? I love you. Well, he scratched me on that, but it's okay. Oh, now Ripley's up. Okay, that was Chester. I hope you guys liked him saying hi. But okay, back to the knit along. So I'm using this yarn to make the hipster hat, which is another beanie by Petite Knit. It is a 2x2 ribbed beanie, and it calls for a DK weight yarn, and I'm using a worsted. But I knit my little swatch, and I decided that I'm going to go down a needle size. One, because I want a tighter fabric. And two, I'm gonna knit a child's. I'm not gonna knit the adult size. I'm gonna knit what is considered the child size. So, I have not cast on the beanie. I just have my little swatch, which is very stretchy. I'm very excited to have it. I was actually Steve Zissou for Halloween last year because at my job, it was my old job. I don't work there anymore, but everyone dressed up and we had like a fun little Halloween party. And I could not come up with a costume. I was like, I'm gonna be Steve Zissou. I was like researching Halloween costume. I was like, that's what I'm gonna be. So I went and thrifted blue clothing because they wear blue, and then a red beanie. And I bought a beanie because I wasn't knitting at the time. So I just bought like it's more orange than this is red, but it was just a red beanie from Target. And as soon as I saw that they were doing this knit along, I was like, I have to do it. It's one of my favorite movies. I would love a beanie that is inspired by it that I made myself instead of the one that I bought from Target, which I'll probably donate or give to a family member or something, because if I knit one, I'm gonna want to wear that one over the store-bought one. But it's still a great beanie, so like I'm not gonna get, yeah. But that is what I am planning to cast on. Before I leave, I'm gonna cast it on. So that is my one concrete plan as of right now. But I'm very excited to cast it on. I have to learn how to do a tubular cast on. So that's going to be interesting, because I mean, I can pick things up pretty quickly by watching videos. But I've watched one for this and it does not seem like the easiest thing. So I'll be intrigued to see what happens. But I'll talk a little bit about the pattern real quick. It's, again, the Hipster Hat by Petite Knit. It has 4 sizes. They're slightly different than the Oslo hat sizes. So there's a baby, a child, a woman, and a man. So similar. But this one, the Hipster Hat, fits a head circumference of 45 centimeters to 60 centimeters. So it has a little bit of a smaller size range. Again, my head is 53.5 centimeters, so with my gauge being off, because I'm using a bigger yarn, I'm gonna do the child size, which I believe the child size and the baby size cast on the same number of stitches. So we're gonna see how this goes and hope that my 4th attempt at a hat turns out successful, so then my record goes 2-2 instead of 1-3 wins and losses with hats. So that's my only yarn acquisition. Oh, Ripley's here now. She's jealous that I picked up Chester. But I have a couple more small acquisitions that are just kind of like little notions and things that I'm excited about. So let me show you those. Let's see. So when I went to buy the, oh, Ripley wants to eat them. Thanks. Okay. So when I went to buy the yarn, I went to my local yarn store and they had a big bowl of needle stoppers of like all different kinds of them, but they were fall themed. And so I got these, these adorable little orange pumpkin needle stoppers. I'm in love with them. I think I have one set of needle stoppers that are from like Joann or Michaels. Also, I told you my brain's chaotic, but why are 2 of the big craft stores named after humans? I don't know who decided to do that. Obviously, whoever founded them, but I really hope the person that founded them is either Michael or Joann. I don't know if I should keep this in. Oh, I probably will. Hey, Chizzy Bug! Okay, so, needle stoppers. My last... Nope, I have a couple more acquisitions. So, I mentioned that I made my cardigan, and so I needed buttons for it. So, I went and got these faux tortoiseshell buttons for my traveler's cardigan, which I'm very excited about. It's the color which you will have seen because I put footage of it in. The color is a warmer gray, like it's almost a brown gray. So these buttons, I don't know how well they're showing up on camera, but they're a warmer or a cooler brown. So they fit really well with the color of the cardigan. And then I also got buttons for the cardigan I showed last time for my best friend. I hadn't gotten buttons, and so I got these, these coconut shell buttons, which I think look really pretty with the purple yarn that I used for it. So I have 2 cardigans that need buttons, but I have obtained the buttons. So, and then my last acquisition, it's kind of a weird one, because I didn't get it. Oh, the buttons are from Joann. My local yarn stores have buttons, but they had way more like novelty buttons and not what I was looking for. So I found my best alternative to be Joann's. But let's talk about my last acquisition. So I have been looking for something like this for a while, and it is a project bag to take with me on my trip that I can put on my wrist, have a little project in, and just walk around with my knitting. And I found a lot on Etsy and Instagram that I really liked, but when I started looking, I realized they weren't going to get here in time for my trip. So I kind of just been like, okay, I'll just use like a drawstring bag that I have from like Wool Warehouse. It won't be as great, but it'll have to do. But then I was doing some last minute like errands for the trip, and I went into Urban Outfitters, which I never go into Urban Outfitters ever. I'm not cool enough to be in there. And they had this. Which is just the perfect little project bag. I'll show you the inside. But it has a zipper, but the zipper doesn't go all the way. So in theory, I could string the yarn through so I can keep it zipped and still have access to the yarn. It's also like boucle, which I feel is very much yarny. And it also comes with a long strap. So if I wanted to like throw it over my shoulder, I could. But it does have the little straps, which is perfect to be on my wrist. I'm so excited about it. It's this lovely yellow, which I would say is bordering on becoming a chartreuse. It's a green leaning yellow. So a cool yellow would be what that's called. But it's so cute. I'm so excited to have this little bag. And I think it's going to be the perfect little project bag for either my hat. I am planning on taking some yarn for socks because I just want small projects to take with me on my trip. So that's all I have for today. I leave in 2 days, which is very exciting. And I can't wait. I've been looking forward to it for so long, and it's crazy that it's finally here. But it also means I'm not going to be posting a video again until November because I won't have time to do anything on my trip. We're traveling a bunch, and I want to focus on that and focus on being with my best friend because I haven't seen her in 2.5 years. So I'm hoping that I will get some knitting done on my trip and have like a little podcast episode when I get back, which is going to be early November. And I've kind of decided that instead of buying like typical souvenirs, I'm going to get yarn because of course I am. But get yarn. I have a giant list of projects that I want to make and that I can Some of them are like one skein projects, so then I can just buy like one skein of like hand-dyed yarn if I find that. Some of them are bigger sweaters, but I have a fun little list. I keep adding to it because I keep seeing things I want to make. It's a huge list. There's no way I'm going to buy all the yarn for everything on there. I don't have a budget that big, but I'm so excited. My birthday's this month, so I'm going to be on my trip during my birthday. My best friend's birthday is also this month, and I'm actually arriving on her birthday, so it's very exciting, and we're going to Disneyland in Paris for my birthday because she's never been to any Disney, and I love Disney. I love it so much. So we're very excited about that, but okay. So I won't be posting on YouTube most likely while I'm gone, but if you're interested in following along with my trip and the knitting that I do, you can follow me on Instagram, which is at Popsicle_Frog. You can follow me on Ravelry, I think, I don't know, but you can see the projects I've worked on. My username for that is Popsicle-Frog, and I can't wait to see you guys again. Thank you so much for watching. I'm so glad that you're here. It means the world. If you made it this far, wow, you made it through all the chaotic. I really hope you can hear Ripley making weird noises on the ground. But I'm so glad you guys are here. I love reading all of the comments and everything you guys leave. Let me know what you're working on. Give me some ideas for projects that you love, because I would love to get recommendations for other things to add to my ever-growing want to knit pile. So, thank you again for staying and sticking around this long. I hope you have a wonderful day. I hope you have made some progress on your craft of choice, and I will see you guys soon. Ripley says goodbye too. Bye.